The Inventive Rabbit and the Dream Machine. Once upon a time, deep in a forest far away, there lived a young rabbit called Henry. Henry was a friendly, curious bunny who loved to tinker and put things together. He had a passion for inventing and found joy in creating and building new contraptions. His inventions often included complex mechanisms made from twigs, moss, and leaves found in the forest. Every morning, Henry would get up bright and early and set to work on a new and exciting invention. One particularly bright day, Henry awoke with a special idea in his head. He had dreamt of a machine that could fly. With a flurry of excitement, Henry collected the parts needed to assemble the contraption. He was determined to make his dream a reality, and he worked around the clock to build the machine. After days of hard work, the invention was finally finished. But the important question remained: would it actually fly? With a deep breath, Henry propelled the machine forward. He held on to his hat as the contraption lifted off the ground. It flew. Henry couldn't believe his eyes. He laughed and cheered as the machine sped through the forest. He waved to all his animal friends as he flew by, basking in the freedom and joy of the experience. On one of his flights, Henry noticed a brilliant sparkle in the distance. Drawn by its beauty, he flew the machine towards the glimmer. He soon arrived at an old and weathered tree without its usual leaves. Instead, the tree had large, shimmering leaves made from stars. Each star glistened in the light and seemed to move in a mysterious rhythm. Henry flew closer and trotted up to the tree. He noticed that the sparks were actually tiny stars, twinkling and winking in the sunlight. Henry was amazed by the sight and decided to investigate further. He immersing himself in the sparkles and was soon surrounded by a light so bright he could hardly keep his eyes open. His fur stood on end as a soft and inviting voice spoke. The voice belonged to the Dream Machine, a mysterious contraption that the stars had created to help others realize their deepest desires. The Dream Machine tiptoed around Henry, introducing him to its world of endless possibilities. It showed Henry how it could make his dream of flying a reality and offered to help Henry bring his inventions into fruition. Henry was hesitant at first but eventually accepted the Dream Machine's offer. He returned to his forest home and set to work on a new invention. With the help of the Dream Machine, Henry was able to make the most advanced and intricate invention he had ever created. He put together a fantastical contraption that allowed him to gather the stars from the night sky and use their energy to power other machines and inventions. The invention worked like a charm and Henry was praised by all his woodland friends. He shared the gift of the Dream Machine to others, allowing them to pursue their deepest desires and make their dreams a reality. Henry continued to explore the limits of his imagination and invent new contraptions, always remembering to thank the Dream Machine for its help. The end.
The Firefly's Adventure on the Night of the Stars. Once upon a time, in a faraway meadow, lived a colony of fireflies. Long ago, these fireflies made a promise to the stars that they would meet once a year, on the night of the stars. That night, the stars would shine brighter and brighter until the fireflies met each other in the meadow and celebrated their special occasion. Every year, the fireflies would eagerly wait for the night of the stars. Brightly colored lights would sparkle in the night as the fireflies flew through the air, searching for their friends. Soon enough, it was time for the night of the stars, and this year, the fireflies were more excited than ever. Two of the fireflies, named Finny and Wally, had an extra special reason to be anxious. They had been planning to make a surprise for their friends that no one knew even existed. Finny and Wally had been secretly working on something called the stargazing machine that would give light to the night for the good of the meadow. So, when the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Finny and Wally flew off in search of a spot to set up their machine. After a few hours of searching, they finally decided on a spot under a large tree. Finny and Wally went to work quickly, and in no time, they had made their stargazing machine. Moments later, the stars had grown brighter and brighter until the meadow was as bright as day. All the fireflies gasped in awe and soon began to swarm around the stargazing machine. Every firefly was already in awe of the beautiful lights that the machine was emitting. Finny and Wally then revealed what their special surprise was: a magical journey. Each firefly was given a map with directions and was ready to take the journey. They would explore the world of the night, full of mysterious creatures and secrets hidden in the stars. Finny and Wally led their friends on their journey but soon faced a problem. They came to a meadow with a thick canopy of trees. All the fireflies couldn't fit through, so they had to find another route around. After a few minutes, they found a path and continued on their journey until they came across a pond. In the middle of the pond was an island, surrounded by fireflies. As the fireflies got closer, they noticed these were not ordinary fireflies. They had brighter and more vibrant colors and were different shapes and sizes. Finny and Wally had discovered a secret colony of fireflies. The fireflies from the secret colony were ecstatic to meet the newcomers and introduce themselves. The fireflies all talked and laughed as they shared stories, learning about each other's lives and experiences. Suddenly, two of the fireflies flew away before anyone could stop them. The secret fireflies had seen a beautiful display of stars from the night sky and were so enchanted that they wanted to fly up and get a closer look. Finny and Wally knew they had to act quickly, so they gathered everyone and flew after the two who had flown away. When they arrived at the display, they saw the two fireflies hovering and admiring the beautiful sight before them. Then the fireflies all cheered as the display of stars lit up the sky in brilliant colors. The night of the stars was even more magical than they had expected, and everyone celebrated with stories, songs, and dances until the night was over. Finny and Wally's stargazing machine gave everyone in the meadow a special view of the stars and a wonderful way to spend their night. When the night was over, the secret fireflies had much more to remember than the stars. They had learned about friendship, bonding, and how to help each other when in need. In the debrief for their adventure, the fireflies were even more excited for the next night of the stars and the new adventure that awaited them. The end.
The Hippo Firefighter and the Rescue in the Jungle of Fire. Once upon a time, in a faraway jungle, there lived a group of animals who prided themselves on their ability to deal with the natural hazards of their habitat. With a wide array of animals living in the jungle, the group of animals had learned to come together to face any kind of emergency or natural disaster. One day, however, their world was thrown into turmoil when a raging wildfire spread quickly across the land. The fire moved so quickly that all kinds of animals, including birds, reptiles, mammals, and fish, were unable to escape and were soon surrounded by the burning heat. Some of the animals were fortunate enough to escape the danger, but others were not so lucky. As the hours passed, the fire began to die down, but unfortunately, some animals remained trapped in the burning jungle. The group of animals, who had formed an ad hoc firefighting brigade, now needed to act fast in order to rescue these helpless creatures before it was too late. After debating on who should lead the rescue mission, the discussion quickly came to an end when a brave, stout-hearted hippo stepped forward and announced that he would be the one to save the day. The brave hippo knew that the only way to reach the animals in need and get them to safety was to venture right into the burning jungle. He alone was brave enough to go in, but that didn't stop the other animals from cheering him on and wishing him luck every step of the way. The brave hippo firefighter ventured forth through the burning jungle, and as he made his way through the smoky haze, he encountered all kinds of animals, from birds to reptiles to mammals to fish. He soon realized that the task at hand was going to be much bigger than he initially thought. He was relentless and undeterred, however, and managed to save many of the animals, big and small, from the roaring blaze. With the help of the other animals, who had stayed behind to lend a hand, he was able to lead them all to safety. The heroic hippo firefighter was tired, but he continued to wade through the smoke and rescue every last animal, until he had saved the day. He had done it. Once, he was certain that all the animals were safe and sound. The heroic hippo firefighter allowed himself to take a break. As a sign of appreciation, the animals he had saved presented him with a special firefighting helmet, and they honored the hippo firefighter as the hero of the day. From then on, the animals of the jungle looked up to the hippo firefighter whenever they needed any kind of help. He was their brave leader, and his actions were an inspiration to all. And so ends the tale of the brave hippo firefighter and the rescue in the jungle of fire.
The incredible invention of the time machine. Once upon a time, in a small town nestled in the heart of the countryside, there lived a young boy named Timmy. Timmy was a curious and adventurous boy who loved nothing more than exploring the world around him. He spent his days wandering through the fields and forests, always on the lookout for something new and exciting. One day, as Timmy was wandering through the woods, he stumbled upon an old, rusty machine. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before, with strange dials and buttons and wires sticking out in every direction. Timmy was fascinated by the machine and couldn't resist the urge to tinker with it. As he fiddled with the dials and buttons, something incredible happened. The machine began to hum and whir, and suddenly Timmy found himself hurtling through time and space. He watched in amazement as the world around him changed, from the lush green forests of his own time to the bustling streets of ancient Rome, the Wild West, and even the distant future. As Timmy traveled through time, he met all sorts of interesting characters. He rode with cowboys, battled dragons, and even had tea with a group of friendly aliens. But no matter where he went or who he met, Timmy always knew that he would eventually return home, to the cozy little town he loved so much. In the end, Timmy realized that the incredible invention of the time machine had given him something even more valuable than the ability to travel through time. It had given him a sense of wonder and adventure that he would carry with him for the rest of his life. And as he sat in his backyard, watching the sunset over the fields, Timmy knew that he would always be grateful for the incredible invention that had changed his life forever.
The Great Donut Race in Candyland. Once upon a time, in the magical land of Candyland, there lived a group of lovable and mischievous donuts. They were always up to something, and today was no exception. The donuts had decided to have a race to see who was the fastest. They had heard about a great racetrack in Candyland, and they were determined to find it. The donuts set off on their journey, and soon they came across a giant donut-shaped track. It was the perfect place for their race. The donuts lined up at the starting line, and the race began. They raced around the track, dodging and weaving around each other. It was a close race, but in the end, the winner was a small, pink donut named Sprinkles. The other donuts cheered for Sprinkles, and they all celebrated with a big party. They ate lots of candy and donuts, and had a great time. The Great Donut Race in Candyland was a huge success, and the donuts all agreed that it was the best race ever.
The Gleeful Gecko's Galactic Game Night. Once upon a time, in a faraway galaxy, there lived a gleeful gecko named Gigi. Gigi loved to play games, and she was always looking for new and exciting challenges to take on. One day, Gigi decided to host a game night for all of her friends in the galaxy. She sent out invitations to all of her favorite creatures, including a curious cat named Cosmo, a friendly frog named Freddy, and a silly squirrel named Sammy. When the big night arrived, Gigi had everything set up for a night of fun and games. She had a table full of snacks and drinks, and a pile of board games and puzzles for everyone to play. The first game they played was a game of space chess. Cosmo was a natural at the game, but Gigi was determined to beat him. She studied the board carefully, and made a daring move that surprised everyone. In the end, Gigi emerged victorious, and everyone cheered. Next, they played a game of hide-and-seek. Freddy was the seeker, and he had to find all of his friends who were hiding throughout the galaxy. Sammy was the first to be found, but Gigi managed to stay hidden the longest. She had found a secret hiding spot behind a nearby asteroid, and Freddy was amazed when he finally found her. Finally, they played a game of charades. Gigi was up first, and she had to act out the word rocket ship. She pretended to blast off into space, and everyone guessed the answer right away. As the night came to a close, Gigi was thrilled with how much fun they had all had together. She knew that she had made some great memories with her friends, and she couldn't wait to host another game night soon. From that day on, Gigi and her friends continued to play games and have fun together in the galaxy. They knew that no matter what challenges they faced, they could always count on each other for support and laughter. And that was the greatest game of all.
The Galactic Zoo Safari. Once upon a time, in a faraway galaxy, there was a group of animal-loving aliens who decided to create a zoo unlike any other. They called it the Galactic Zoo Safari, and it was a place where visitors could travel through space and see all sorts of exotic creatures from different planets. The zoo was run by a friendly alien named Zara, who had a passion for taking care of animals. She had a team of helpers, including a robot named R2, who was in charge of maintenance, and a little green alien named Gizmo, who loved to play with the animals. One day, a group of Earth children visited the zoo. They were amazed by the strange and wonderful creatures they saw, like the furry, six-legged Wumpus from planet Zog, and the giant, tentacled Kraken from planet Neptune. But the children's favorite animal was a little creature called a Fluffernutter. It was a small, fluffy ball of fur with big, round eyes and a cute little nose. The Fluffernutter was so adorable that the children couldn't resist petting it. However, the Fluffernutter was not happy in its cage. It missed its home planet, where it could run and play freely. Zara noticed the Fluffernutters' sadness and decided to take action. She gathered the children and her team and announced that they were going on a mission to find the Fluffernutters' home planet. The children were thrilled and couldn't wait to help. They boarded the zoo's spaceship and set off on their adventure. They traveled through space, passing by colorful planets and dodging asteroids. Finally, they arrived at the Fluffernutters' home planet. The planet was covered in soft, fluffy clouds, and the Fluffernutters were running and playing everywhere. The children were overjoyed to see the Fluffernutter, so happy and free. Zara and her team decided to leave the Fluffernutter on its home planet, where it could live happily ever after. The children said goodbye to their new friend and returned to Earth, feeling grateful for the amazing adventure they had just experienced. From that day on, the Galactic Zoo Safari became known as the zoo that cared about its animals and their happiness. And the Fluffernutter became a legend, inspiring children all over the galaxy to love and protect animals.
The Hamster Adventurer and the Candy Mountain. Once upon a time, there lived a little hamster in the town of Almacum. Life in Almacum was simple but content. They lived peacefully and there was never any trouble. The little hamster was rather adventurous, and he wanted to do something exciting and different with his life. So one day, during the summer of his 12th year, the little hamster decided to set off on an adventure. Armed with a knapsack of food and a pair of walking boots, the little hamster ventured out into the unknown. After traveling for several days, the little hamster eventually arrived in a magical forest not far from Almacum. The little hamster was mesmerized by the tall trees and the exotic flora and fauna. However, before the little hamster had too much time to explore the forest, an unusual creature came charging towards him. The creature was small and furry, with a long tail and an equally long mustache. It was a talking rat. The rat introduced himself as Count Phlox, the king of the rats. Count Phlox informed the little hamster that he was from the far-off land of Chocolata and he was on a quest. He informed the little hamster that a great evil witch named Theodora had stolen a magical golden key that opened the gates of the Candy Mountain. Theodora wanted to use the key to unlock the gates of the Candy Mountain and steal all of its glorious candy. Count Phlox was determined to stop Theodora, but he needed help. He asked the little hamster if he would help him in his quest to save the Candy Mountain. The little hamster eagerly accepted the challenge and the two set off on an epic adventure. They ventured far and wide, traveling through dense forests, deep caves, and raging rivers. However, their journey would not be without its obstacles. Along the way, they encountered trolls, ogres, and other unsavory creatures. But the intrepid hamster and rat duo weren't afraid. Each time they faced adversity, they used their wit, courage, and bravery to make it through unscathed. Finally, after months of searching, they arrived at the gates of the Candy Mountain. With a little bit of luck and a whole lot of courage, they were able to successfully fight their way through the witch's minions and reach the golden key. But as soon as they had the key in their hands, Theodora appeared. Theodora was furious, but with a clever plan, the hamster and rat were soon able to outwit her and acquire the key. But their adventure wasn't yet over. They still had to unlock the gate of the Candy Mountain and reach the candy within. They successfully entered the Candy Mountain and made their way through its many levels, overcoming obstacles and hazards along the way until they eventually reached the top level and faced Theodora once again. Fortunately, with the help of their newfound friend, a dragonfly named Dreidel, they were able to convince Theodora to give up her evil ways and free the Candy Mountain of her curse. As a reward, Count Flox and the little hamster were allowed to take as much candy as they wanted. The little hamster happily filled his knapsack with the delicious treats and happily shared them with the people of Almacum on his return. And as for Count Flox, he returned to his home in Chocolata with newfound friends and a heart full of gratitude. The little hamster and the brave rat lived happily ever after, often talking of the adventure they undertook to save the Candy Mountain. And wherever there were candy mountains that needed saving, you could always find the hamster adventurer and Count Flox ready to take on the challenge.
The hilarious hamster's hoverboard heist. Once upon a time, in a small town, there lived a hilarious hamster named Harry. Harry was not your ordinary hamster. He was a mischievous little fellow who loved to play pranks on his friends and family. One day, Harry was strolling through the park when he saw a group of kids riding their hoverboards. Harry was fascinated by the hoverboards and wanted one for himself. But, being a hamster, he knew he couldn't ride one. So, Harry came up with a plan. He decided to steal a hoverboard from one of the kids. He waited until the kids were distracted and then made his move. He snatched a hoverboard and scurried away. But, Harry didn't realize that the hoverboard belonged to a little girl named Lily. Lily was heartbroken when she saw her hoverboard was missing. She searched everywhere but couldn't find it. Meanwhile, Harry was having the time of his life riding the hoverboard. He was doing flips and tricks and having a blast. But, his fun was short-lived when Lily and her friends caught up with him. Lily was angry at first, but then she saw how much fun Harry was having. She decided to forgive him and even taught him some new tricks on the hoverboard. From that day on, Harry and Lily became the best of friends. They would ride their hoverboards together and have the most hilarious adventures. And, Harry learned that sometimes it's better to share and make friends than to steal and be alone. The end.
The Mysterious Island of Monsters. Once upon a time, there was a group of adventurous kids who loved exploring new places. One day, they stumbled upon a mysterious island that was said to be home to terrifying monsters. Despite the warnings, the kids decided to explore the island and uncover its secrets. As they made their way through the dense jungle, they came across a friendly creature named Z. Z was a furry, blue monster with big, round eyes and a kind heart. Z explained that the other monsters on the island were not as friendly and had been causing trouble for the other creatures who lived there. Determined to help, the kids set out to find the source of the monsters' anger. They discovered that the monsters were upset because they had been living in a polluted part of the island and were unable to find clean water or food. The kids knew they had to act fast to help the monsters. They worked together to clean up the polluted area and create a new, safe home for the monsters. They also helped the monsters find fresh water and food, and soon the monsters were no longer angry or scary. In fact, the monsters turned out to be quite friendly and even helped the kids build a treehouse to stay in during their visit. The kids and monsters became fast friends and spent the rest of their time on the island playing games and exploring together. As the kids prepared to leave the island, they knew they had made a difference in the lives of the monsters and other creatures who lived there. They also knew they had made some new, lifelong friends. And so, the kids left the mysterious island of monsters with happy memories and a newfound appreciation for the power of friendship and kindness.
The Heroic Hedgehog's Heartfelt Hug. Once upon a time, in a lush green forest, there lived a little hedgehog named Harry. Harry was not like the other hedgehogs in the forest. He was born with a small heart that made him tired and weak. But Harry never let his small heart stop him from doing what he loved the most, exploring the forest and making new friends. One day, while Harry was out on his adventure, he met a group of animals who were playing together. There was a rabbit, a squirrel, a deer, and a fox. They were all having fun, but Harry felt left out because he couldn't keep up with them. He wanted to join in, but he was too tired. Feeling sad, Harry decided to go back home. But as he was walking, he heard a faint cry for help. It was coming from a nearby bush. Harry went closer to investigate and found a little bird who had fallen out of its nest. The bird was scared and alone, and Harry knew he had to help. Despite his tiredness, Harry used all his strength to carry the bird back to its nest. The other animals saw what Harry had done and were amazed. They realized that Harry was not weak, but he was actually the bravest of them all. The animals gathered around Harry and gave him a big hug. It was a heartfelt hug that made Harry feel loved and appreciated. From that day on, Harry was no longer the little hedgehog with a small heart. He was the heroic hedgehog who had a big heart full of love and kindness. And so, Harry continued to explore the forest and make new friends. He may have been different, but he was loved by all. The end.
The Galactic Battle for Survival. Once upon a time, in a faraway galaxy, there lived a group of aliens who were facing a great challenge. Their planet was running out of resources, and they needed to find a new home to survive. The only problem was that they were not the only ones looking for a new planet to call home. The aliens had to compete with other species from different planets in the galaxy. They all wanted the same thing, and it was a race against time to find a new planet before it was too late. The leader of the aliens, Zorg, knew that they needed to act fast. He gathered his team of the bravest and most skilled aliens to embark on a mission to find a new planet. They set off in their spaceship, equipped with the latest technology and weapons to defend themselves against any threats they might encounter. As they traveled through space, they encountered many challenges. They had to navigate through asteroid fields, avoid black holes, and fight off hostile alien species. But they never gave up, and they continued their journey with determination and courage. Finally, after months of traveling, they found a planet that was perfect for their needs. It had plenty of resources, and it was uninhabited. But just as they were about to land, they were attacked by a group of aliens from a neighboring planet. The battle was fierce, but the aliens were determined to protect their new home. They fought with all their might, using their weapons and their wits to defeat their enemies. In the end, they emerged victorious, and they were able to land on the new planet. The aliens were overjoyed to have found a new home, and they celebrated their victory with a big feast. Zorg thanked his team for their bravery and their hard work, and they all lived happily ever after on their new planet. And so, the galactic battle for survival had been won. and the aliens had found a new home to call their own.
The Great Escape from the Space Station. Once upon a time, in a faraway galaxy, there was a space station called Starlight. It was home to many different creatures, including aliens, robots, and humans. The space station was a bustling place, with spaceships coming and going all the time. One day, a group of friends, a little alien named Sock, a robot named Robbie, and a human named Jack, were playing a game of hide-and-seek. They were having so much fun that they didn't realize they had wandered into a restricted area of the space station. Suddenly, an alarm went off, and they heard a voice over the intercom saying, "Intruders detected. All personnel, please report to the control room immediately." The friends knew they were in trouble and had to find a way out of the space station before they were caught. They quickly came up with a plan to escape. Zog used his special powers to create a diversion by making a loud noise in one part of the space station. While the guards were distracted, Robbie used his robotic arms to open a hatch that led to the outside of the space station. Jack, being the bravest of the group, volunteered to go first. He put on a spacesuit and jumped out of the hatch. The others followed him, and they all floated in space, looking for a way to get back to their spaceship. Just then, they saw a group of friendly aliens flying by in their spaceship. The aliens saw the friends and offered to help them get back to their ship. The friends were overjoyed and climbed aboard the alien spaceship. They thanked the aliens for their help and said goodbye as they flew back to their own ship. As they flew away from the space station, the friends looked back and saw the guards searching for them. They knew they had made a great escape and felt proud of themselves for being so brave. From that day on, the friends were even closer than before, and they always remembered their exciting adventure on the space station. And who knows, maybe one day they'll have another great escape.
The Gracious Giraffe's Greatness Quest. Once upon a time, in the heart of the African savannah, there lived a gracious giraffe named Gigi. Gigi was known for her long neck, her beautiful spots, and her kind heart. She loved to roam the savannah, munching on leaves and playing with her animal friends. One day, Gigi heard about a great quest that was taking place in the savannah. The quest was to find the most unique and special animal in all the land. Gigi was intrigued and decided to join in on the fun. As she set out on her quest, Gigi met many different animals. She met a zebra with stripes that sparkled in the sun, a lion with a magnificent mane, and a monkey with a tail that could swing from tree to tree. Gigi was amazed by all the unique qualities of her animal friends. But as she continued on her journey, Gigi began to feel a little sad. She realized that she didn't have any special qualities like her friends did. She didn't have stripes or a mane or a tail. She just had a long neck and spots. Feeling down, Gigi almost gave up on her quest. But then she remembered something her mother had told her when she was young. Gigi, her mother had said, "You may not have the flashiest qualities, but you have a kind heart and a gracious spirit. That is what makes you truly special." With her mother's words in mind, Gigi continued on her quest. And as she did, she began to notice something. Everywhere she went, animals would stop and stare at her. They would smile and wave and say hello. Gigi realized that her kind heart and gracious spirit were what made her stand out from the rest. In the end, Gigi won the quest. Not because of her long neck or her spots, but because of her kind heart and gracious spirit. And as she stood on the podium, surrounded by her animal friends, Gigi felt proud of who she was. The moral of the story is that we are all unique and special in our own way. It doesn't matter if we have a disability or a difference, what matters is the kind of person we are on the inside. And just like Gigi, we should always be proud of who we are.
The Great Escape from the Haunted Castle. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there was a haunted castle that was said to be cursed. The castle was home to a wicked witch who had cast a spell on the castle, making it impossible for anyone to escape once they entered. One day, a group of brave and adventurous children decided to explore the castle. They had heard the stories of the witch and the curse, but they were determined to find out the truth for themselves. As they entered the castle, they were greeted by spooky sounds and eerie shadows. But they were not afraid, for they had each other and their courage to guide them. As they explored the castle, they came across a group of friendly ghosts who had been trapped in the castle for years. The ghosts told the children about the curse and how the witch had trapped them in the castle. The children knew they had to help the ghosts and find a way to break the curse. They searched high and low, and finally, they found a secret passage that led to the witch's lair. The witch was furious when she saw the children and the ghosts. She tried to cast a spell on them, but the children were quick to act. They used their wits and their bravery to outsmart the witch and break the curse. With the curse broken, the children and the ghosts were finally able to escape from the haunted castle. They were overjoyed and grateful to each other for their bravery and teamwork. From that day on, the children and the ghosts became the best of friends. They went on many more adventures together, but they never forgot the great escape from the haunted castle and the bond they had formed.
The Great Adventure of the Wild Mustangs. Once upon a time, in a vast and beautiful prairie, there lived a herd of wild mustangs. They were free and happy, running and playing all day long. But one day, a group of cowboys came to the prairie, looking for horses to sell. The mustangs knew they had to run away, but they didn't want to leave their home. So, they decided to go on a great adventure to find a new place to live, where they could be safe and free. The leader of the herd was a brave and wise stallion named Thunder. He gathered all the mustangs and told them about his plan. They would travel across the prairie, through the mountains, and over the rivers, until they found a new home. The mustangs were excited about the adventure, and they set off on their journey. They ran through the tall grass, jumped over fallen trees, and swam across the rivers. They met many animals along the way, like rabbits, deer, and even a friendly bear. But the cowboys were still chasing them, and they had to be careful. Thunder led the herd through narrow canyons and steep cliffs, where the cowboys couldn't follow. Finally, after many days of traveling, the mustangs reached a beautiful valley, surrounded by mountains and forests. It was the perfect place to live, with plenty of grass and water. The mustangs were overjoyed, and they celebrated their new home with a big feast. Thunder thanked all the mustangs for their bravery and loyalty, and they all lived happily ever after. From that day on, the wild mustangs were known as the bravest and most adventurous horses in the prairie. And whenever they saw a new challenge or danger, they remembered their great adventure and knew they could overcome anything together.
The Hopping Horse and the Starry Competition. Once upon a time, there lived a small horse called Neil. He was so small, you had to crouch to pat him on the neck. Neil lived on a large farm with the other farm animals, and he absolutely loved his family. But Neil was different to the other horses. Neil could hop. Of course, he could gallop and trot too, but he much preferred to hop. One day, Neil's family were out having a picnic on one of the grassy fields surrounding their farm. As they enjoyed the lunch they had prepared, they saw a flock of starlings flying overhead. Neil watched in awe at their graceful wings. "Wow! How wonderful it would be to fly like those birds," he said to his family. "It sure would," said his two younger siblings, Belle and Fred. Just then, one of the starlings flew down from the sky and landed in front of the horses. "Hello," it said in a cheerful voice. "My name is Sky, and I'm here to let you know about the Starry Competition." The horses were filled with excitement. Except for Neil. "What is a Starry Competition?" he asked, his eyes wide with curiosity. "It is the grandest competition in all the lands, and it is all about the art of flight," Sky explained. "Anyone can enter and compete, no matter the species. And the best flyer wins the grand prize. It's coming up soon, and I thought you should know." "Well, it all sounds wonderful, but I'm afraid I can't compete," said Neil sadly. "Why not?" Sky asked. Neil hung his head and refused to say anything. But his family knew the answer all too well. Neil couldn't fly. But that didn't stop Sky. "I know you can't fly, Neil, but that doesn't mean you can't participate. I've got a special idea. You don't have to fly, but you can still take part by hopping." Neil's mouth hung open in shock. He couldn't believe his ears. He could take part. So, with every ounce of energy he had, Neil began to practice hopping for the Starry Competition. He jumped over logs and hopped around rocks, and soon he was ready. On the day of the competition, Neil could hardly believe his eyes. There were swans, hawks, robins and other animals all in the competition. All of them able to fly except Neil with his little legs. Neil felt embarrassed and out of place. He wanted to turn around and go back home, but then he felt a hand on his shoulder. It was his little brother Fred. "You got this, Neil. Hop your heart out," he said with a smile. With that, Neil felt a new confidence. He squared his shoulders, took a deep breath, and started hopping his way through the competition. He jumped over logs and hopped under trees, using all of the tricks he had practiced. The audience, and even the other competitors, were all amazed at how quickly, gracefully, and enthusiastically Neil hopped. He was an impressive sight, and soon enough, the judges announced their decision. The first place award, and the grand prize, went to Neil. The crowd erupted into cheers and applause. Neil was so overjoyed that he burst into a song of joy, and did a few more hops for good measure. From that day forward, Neil was known as the Hopping Horse. He traveled near and far, competing in hop races, and teaching other animals how to hop, just like he did. As for the Starry Competition, it's still held every year, now with a special category, just for the hopping horse. All of the participants know the story of Neil and his hopping, and the story is still told to this day. The end.
The Grinning Gophers Go-Kart Grand Prix. Once upon a time, in a small town nestled in the heart of the countryside, there lived a group of animal friends who loved nothing more than racing around in their go-karts. There was a speedy rabbit named Roger, a determined tortoise named Timmy, a clever fox named Fiona, and a mischievous gopher named Gary. One day, Gary came up with a brilliant idea. He suggested that they hold a Grand Prix race, with all the animals in the town invited to participate. Everyone was excited about the idea, and they quickly got to work building their go-karts and practicing their driving skills. The day of the race arrived, and the town was buzzing with excitement. The animals lined up at the starting line, revving their engines and eager to begin. The race was off to a great start, with Roger taking an early lead. But soon, Fiona and Timmy caught up, and the three of them were neck and neck. As they rounded a sharp turn, they were surprised to see Gary grinning mischievously at them from the sidelines. He had a trick up his sleeve, and he was determined to win the race. Suddenly, he pulled out a remote control and pressed a button, causing a giant inflatable banana to pop up in front of the other racers. Roger, Fiona, and Timmy swerved to avoid the banana, but Gary zoomed past them, laughing all the way. But his victory was short-lived, as the other animals quickly caught up and passed him. In the end, it was Timmy who crossed the finish line first, with Roger and Fiona close behind. As they celebrated their victory, the animals couldn't help but laugh at Gary's silly antics. They knew that even though he didn't win the race, he had certainly made it more exciting. And so, they all agreed that the Grinning Gophers Go-Kart Grand Prix was a huge success, and they couldn't wait to do it all again next year.
The Heroic Quest of the Mighty Knights. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived 3 brave knights named Sir Lancelot, Sir Galahad, and Sir Percival. They were known throughout the land for their bravery, chivalry, and their love for adventure. One day, the king of the kingdom called upon the 3 knights and gave them a quest. The king's daughter, Princess Isabella, had been kidnapped by an evil sorcerer named Malika. The king asked the knights to rescue his daughter and bring her back safely to the kingdom. Without hesitation, the 3 knights set out on their quest. They rode their horses through the forest, over mountains, and across rivers. Along the way, they met many challenges and obstacles, but they never gave up. One day, they came across a village that was being terrorized by a fire-breathing dragon. The villagers begged the knights to help them. Sir Lancelot, Sir Galahad, and Sir Percival knew that they had to defeat the dragon to continue their quest. They came up with a plan to defeat the dragon. Sir Lancelot distracted the dragon while Sir Galahad snuck up behind it and stabbed it with his sword. Sir Percival then used his shield to protect them from the dragon's fiery breath. With the dragon defeated, the knights continued on their quest. They finally reached Malika's castle, where Princess Isabella was being held captive. They fought their way through Malika's guards and rescued the princess. As they were leaving the castle, Malika appeared and challenged the knights to a duel. The knights fought bravely, and in the end, they defeated Malika. The 3 knights returned to the kingdom with Princess Isabella, and the king was overjoyed. He declared them heroes and threw a grand feast in their honor. From that day on, Sir Lancelot, Sir Galahad, and Sir Percival were known as the Mighty Knights, and their heroic quest became a legend that was told for generations to come.
The Enchanted Fairy Forest. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there was a magical forest filled with fairies. The enchanted fairy forest was a place where the trees sparkled with fairy dust, and the flowers bloomed in every color of the rainbow. In this forest, there lived a group of fairies who were the best of friends. There was Rosie, the red-haired fairy who loved to sing and dance. There was Lily, the blue-haired fairy who was always curious and loved to explore. And then there was Daisy, the yellow-haired fairy who was the most caring and kind-hearted of them all. One day, while the fairies were playing hide-and-seek, they stumbled upon a hidden path that led deep into the forest. They followed the path, and soon they found themselves in front of a giant tree with a door carved into its trunk. Without hesitation, the fairies pushed open the door and stepped inside. To their amazement, they found themselves in a magical room filled with glittering jewels, sparkling crystals, and shimmering fairy dust. As they explored the room, they heard a soft voice calling out to them. It was the voice of the Fairy Queen, who had been trapped in the room for many years. The fairies knew they had to help the Fairy Queen escape, but they didn't know how. That's when they remembered the magical powers of the enchanted fairy forest. With their combined powers, the fairies created a magical portal that transported them and the Fairy Queen back to the heart of the forest. The Fairy Queen was overjoyed to be free, and she thanked the fairies for their bravery and kindness. From that day on, the fairies and the Fairy Queen became the best of friends. They spent their days exploring the enchanted fairy forest, singing and dancing, and spreading joy and happiness wherever they went. And so, the enchanted fairy forest remained a magical place, filled with wonder and enchantment, thanks to the bravery and kindness of the three lovable fairies.
The Floating Balloon. Once upon a time, in a small town nestled in the mountains, there was a little girl named Lily. She loved nothing more than playing outside and exploring the world around her. One day, while wandering through the fields, she stumbled upon a bright red balloon lying on the ground. Lily picked up the balloon and was surprised to find that it was still inflated. She held onto the string and watched as the balloon floated up into the sky, higher and higher until it disappeared from sight. Lily was amazed and couldn't wait to tell her friends about her discovery. The next day, Lily and her friends decided to go on a balloon adventure. They each picked out their own colorful balloons and tied them to their wrists. They ran through the fields, laughing and giggling as their balloons bounced along behind them. As they reached the top of a hill, a gust of wind suddenly blew through the valley. Lily's balloon was caught in the wind and began to float away. She tried to hold on to the string, but it slipped through her fingers and the balloon soared higher and higher into the sky. Lily was heartbroken. She had lost her balloon and didn't know how to get it back. But then, she had an idea. She remembered a story her grandmother had told her about a magical balloon that could float anywhere in the world. Lily and her friends set out on a quest to find the magical balloon. They traveled through forests and across rivers, searching for any clues that would lead them to the balloon. Finally, they came across an old man who told them that the magical balloon could be found at the top of a nearby mountain. The children climbed the mountain, their balloons bouncing along behind them. When they reached the top, they saw a beautiful rainbow-colored balloon floating in the sky. Lily knew that this was the magical balloon she had been searching for. She reached out and grabbed onto the string, and the balloon began to pull her up into the sky. Lily's friends held onto her legs, and they all soared into the clouds, laughing and shouting with joy. As they floated through the sky, Lily realized that the real magic of the balloon was the adventure it had taken her on. She knew that she would never forget the feeling of flying through the clouds with her friends, and she would always cherish the memory of the floating balloon.
The Flamingo's Flamboyant Fiasco. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there lived a group of flamboyant flamingos. They were known for their bright pink feathers and their love for dancing. They would often gather by the lake and dance the day away. One day, the leader of the flamboyant flamingos, Flora, decided to organize a dance competition. All the flamingos were excited and started practicing their moves. They wanted to win the competition and show off their best dance moves. The day of the competition arrived, and all the flamingos gathered by the lake. Flora was the judge, and she was impressed by all the amazing dance moves. But suddenly, disaster struck. One of the flamingos, Fred, tripped and fell, causing a chain reaction that led to all the other flamingos falling over like dominoes. The flamingos were in a state of panic, and Flora didn't know what to do. That's when a little bird named Benny flew in to save the day. Benny was small but mighty, and he had a plan to help the flamingos. Benny suggested that they all work together and create a synchronized dance routine. The flamingos were hesitant at first, but they decided to give it a try. They practiced day and night, and soon they had a dance routine that was out of this world. The day of the competition arrived once again, and this time, the flamingos were ready. They performed their synchronized dance routine flawlessly, and the crowd went wild. Flora was so impressed that she declared all the flamingos winners of the competition. From that day on, the flamboyant flamingos continued to dance by the lake, but now they did it together as a team. And Benny became their new friend, always there to help them when they needed it. The end.
The Giggling Gorilla's Great Gathering. Once upon a time, in the heart of the jungle, there lived a giggling gorilla named Gigi. Gigi was known throughout the jungle for her infectious laughter and her love for grapes. She would spend hours each day searching for the juiciest and sweetest grapes to munch on. One day, Gigi had an idea. She decided to invite all of her jungle friends to a great gathering. She knew that her friends would love to join her in the search for the perfect grapes. Gigi set out early in the morning, with her friends following close behind. They searched high and low, through the vines and bushes, until they found the most beautiful grapes they had ever seen. The grapes were big and plump, and they glistened in the sunlight. Gigi and her friends began to gather the grapes, filling their baskets to the brim. They laughed and joked as they worked, enjoying each other's company and the sweet smell of the grapes. As they were gathering the grapes, they heard a rustling in the bushes. Suddenly, a mischievous monkey appeared, trying to steal their grapes. Gigi and her friends chased the monkey away, but not before he had taken a few grapes for himself. Undeterred, Gigi and her friends continued their grape gathering, determined to find the best grapes in the jungle. They searched high and low, through the vines and bushes, until they found a hidden grove of grapes that were even more delicious than the first. Gigi and her friends gathered the grapes, filling their baskets to the brim. They laughed and joked as they worked, enjoying each other's company and the sweet smell of the grapes. As the sun began to set, Gigi and her friends returned to their homes, each with a basket full of grapes. They shared their grapes with their families and friends, and they all agreed that it had been the best grape gathering ever. From that day on, Gigi and her friends would often gather together to search for the juiciest and sweetest grapes in the jungle. And whenever they found them, they would laugh and joke and enjoy each other's company, just like they had on that great gathering day.
The Inspiring Iguana's Imaginative Journey. Once upon a time, in a lush jungle, there lived an iguana named Iggy. Iggy was no ordinary iguana, he had a special talent that made him stand out from the rest. Iggy loved to paint and draw, and he was very good at it too. One day, Iggy decided to go on an adventure to find new inspiration for his art. He packed his backpack with his art supplies and set off into the jungle. As he walked, Iggy met many animals who were amazed by his talent. They asked him to draw their portraits, and Iggy happily obliged. He drew a colorful parrot, a majestic tiger, and even a tiny ant. But as Iggy continued on his journey, he came across a group of animals who were not so friendly. They laughed at Iggy and made fun of his colorful scales and long tail. Iggy felt sad and wanted to go back home. But then, he remembered something his mother had told him. Iggy, you are special and unique, and that is what makes you amazing. Don't let anyone bring you down. With renewed confidence, Iggy continued on his journey. He found a beautiful waterfall and sat down to paint. As he painted, he realized that his differences were what made his art so special. His colorful scales and long tail gave his paintings a unique touch. When Iggy returned home, he held an art show for all the animals in the jungle. They were amazed by his beautiful paintings and praised him for his talent. Iggy felt proud of himself and knew that his differences were what made him special. From that day on, Iggy continued to paint and draw, inspiring other animals to embrace their differences and talents. And he lived happily ever after, knowing that he was loved and appreciated for who he was.
The musical Dinosaurs and the Prehistoric Concert. Once upon a time, deep in the prehistoric forest, lived a group of friendly dinosaurs. Some liked to run, while others liked to hide. There were green ones, purple ones, and even pink ones. But what they all had in common was the same adventurous spirit. One day, the dinosaurs were out exploring when they came across a strange tree. Its trunk was made of different types of wood, and its branches were draped with colorful streamers. When they got closer, they realized that the tree was actually a giant music box. The dinosaurs were so amazed that they decided to investigate further. Soon, they figured out that the music box contained special buttons, knobs, and switches. After a few experiments, the dinosaurs learned how to use the buttons to make different tunes. The music was so beautiful that the dinosaurs were inspired to make their own songs. They sang out loud, danced around, and high-fived each other in joy. Time seemed to stand still as the music echoed around the forest. The next day, the dinosaurs decided to host their own musical show. They gathered up fruits, plants, and leaves from the forest and used their talents to create decorations. Some dinosaurs even learned how to craft musical instruments. Before long, the forest was bustling with activity and the dinosaurs were ready to perform. At last, it was time for the prehistoric concert. All of the dinosaurs gathered together and the music began. Everyone sang, danced, and clapped along to the melodies. The electricity in the air was light and the beat was so infectious that even the silent trees joined in the fun. When the music eventually came to an end, the dinosaurs cheered and hugged each other. Then they all took a bow and thanked their friends, both old and new. As the celebration winding down, the sun began to set and the dinosaur realized that it was time to go home. Ever since then, the musical dinosaurs and their special friends have continued to perform in the forest, playing beautiful music and making everybody smile. Whenever the dinosaurs feel like it, They take out their instruments and start singing, much to the delight of nature. And that's the story of the musical dinosaurs and the prehistoric concert.
The Journey to Wonderland. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there lived a curious little girl named Lily. She loved to explore and discover new things, and she was always looking for adventure. One day, as she was wandering through the woods, she stumbled upon a mysterious portal. Without hesitation, she stepped through it and found herself in a strange and wondrous place called Wonderland. As she looked around, she saw all sorts of amazing things. There were talking animals, magical flowers, and even a tea party with a Mad Hatter and a March Hare. Lily was thrilled to be in Wonderland, but she soon realized that she was lost and didn't know how to get back home. She asked the Cheshire Cat for help, but he only gave her a riddle to solve. Determined to find her way back, Lily set off on a journey through Wonderland, meeting new friends along the way. She met a friendly caterpillar who taught her how to use her imagination to create her own path, and a brave little mouse who showed her how to be courageous in the face of danger. As she traveled through the strange and magical land, Lily learned many valuable lessons about friendship, bravery, and the power of imagination. And in the end, she discovered that the key to finding her way home was within herself all along. With a happy heart and a newfound sense of confidence, Lily said goodbye to her friends in Wonderland and stepped back through the portal, ready to face whatever adventures lay ahead.
The ingenious iguana's ice cream invention. Once upon a time, in a lush jungle, there lived an ingenious iguana named Iggy. Iggy was always tinkering with things, trying to invent something new and exciting. One hot summer day, Iggy was feeling particularly creative. He wanted to make something that would cool him down and satisfy his sweet tooth. That's when he had an idea: he would invent his own ice cream. Iggy set to work, gathering all the ingredients he could find in the jungle. He mixed and stirred and tasted until he had the perfect recipe. But there was one problem: he didn't have a freezer to keep his ice cream cold. Iggy scratched his head, trying to think of a solution. That's when he remembered his friend, the elephant. Iggy went to visit his friend and asked if he could borrow his trunk. The elephant was confused but agreed to help. Iggy poured his ice cream mixture into the elephant's trunk and asked him to blow cold air into it. The elephant did as he was told, and soon enough, the ice cream started to freeze. Iggy was thrilled with his invention and decided to share it with all his friends in the jungle. He set up a little ice cream stand and started serving his delicious creation. All the animals in the jungle came to try it, and they loved it. They couldn't get enough of Iggy's ice cream. Word of Iggy's invention spread quickly, and soon enough, animals from all over the jungle were coming to try it. Iggy became famous for his ice cream, and he was happy to share it with everyone. From that day on, Iggy's ice cream invention became a staple in the jungle. Whenever anyone needed to cool down on a hot day, they knew exactly where to go. And Iggy was happy knowing that he had made something that brought joy to so many.
The Haunted Ghost Ship. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there was a group of friends named Jack, Lily, and Maximum. They loved to explore and go on adventures together. One day, they heard about a haunted ghost ship that was said to be cursed and abandoned for years. The ship was said to be filled with treasure, but no one had ever dared to go near it. The three friends were excited about the idea of finding treasure and decided to go on a quest to find the haunted ghost ship. They packed their bags with food, water, and a map, and set off on their adventure. After a long journey, They finally reached the shore where the haunted ghost ship was supposed to be. They saw the ship in the distance, and it looked old and rusty. The ship was covered in cobwebs, and the sails were torn and tattered. As they got closer, they heard strange noises coming from the ship. They were scared, but decided to be brave and explore the ship. They climbed aboard and started to search for treasure. As they walked through the ship, they saw ghostly figures and heard eerie sounds. They were scared, but they didn't give up. They continued to search for treasure, and finally, they found a chest filled with gold and jewels. Suddenly, the ship started to shake, and they heard a loud voice saying, "Who dares to take my treasure?" It was the ghost of the captain who had been guarding the treasure for years. The friends were scared, but they didn't want to give up the treasure. They decided to fight the ghost and protect their treasure. They used their wits and bravery to defeat the ghost and escape from the haunted ghost ship. They returned home with their treasure and became famous for their bravery. They had an adventure of a lifetime and learned that sometimes the scariest things can lead to the greatest rewards. From that day on, they continued to go on adventures together, and they always remembered the haunted ghost ship and the treasure they found.
The Incredible Adventures of a Talking Dog. Once upon a time, in a small town nestled in the heart of the countryside, there lived a talking dog named Maximum. Max was no ordinary dog. He had the ability to speak and understand human language. He lived with his owner, a kind-hearted old man named Mr. Johnson, who loved him dearly. One day, while Mr. Johnson was out running errands, Max decided to go on an adventure. He had always dreamed of exploring the world beyond his small town, and today was the day he was going to make that dream a reality. Max set off on his journey, trotting down the dusty road with his tail wagging in excitement. As he walked, he met a group of animals who were also on their own adventures. There was a wise old owl named Hooty, a mischievous raccoon named Rocky, and a friendly rabbit named Thumper. Together, they traveled through forests, crossed rivers, and climbed mountains. Along the way, they encountered many challenges, but with Max's quick thinking and the group's teamwork, they were able to overcome them all. One day, while they were resting by a river, they overheard a group of humans talking about a lost treasure. Max and his friends knew they had to find it, and so they set off on a new adventure. They searched high and low, through dark caves and over treacherous terrain, until they finally found the treasure. It was a chest filled with gold and jewels, but more importantly, it was a symbol of their friendship and the incredible adventures they had shared. Max and his friends returned home, where Mr. Johnson was waiting for them. He was overjoyed to see Max safe and sound, and he listened with wonder as Max told him all about their incredible adventures. From that day on, Max and his friends continued to go on many more adventures, always exploring new places and meeting new friends. And although they faced many challenges along the way, they knew that as long as they had each other, they could overcome anything. The end.
The Guffawing Giraffe's Garden Gala. Once upon a time, in the heart of the African savanna, there lived a giraffe named Guffaw. Guffaw was known throughout the land for his infectious laughter, which could be heard from miles away. He loved nothing more than to make his friends and family laugh, and he was always looking for new ways to bring joy to those around him. One day, Guffaw had an idea. He decided to throw a garden gala, where all of his animal friends could come together and enjoy the beauty of the savanna. Gaffur spent weeks preparing for the event, planting flowers and decorating the area with colorful streamers and balloons. As the day of the gala approached, Gaffur's friends began to arrive. There was Zara the zebra, who wore a beautiful striped dress, and Leo the lion, who came dressed in his finest manner. There were also monkeys, elephants, and even a family of meerkats who had traveled from far away to attend the gala. Gaffur was thrilled to see all of his friends together in one place, and he began to tell jokes and make silly faces to get everyone laughing. The animals danced and played games, and they all enjoyed the delicious food that Gaffur had prepared. As the sun began to set, Gaffur led his friends to a special spot where he had set up a stage. He climbed up onto the stage and began to tell a story, using his long neck to make funny gestures and expressions. The animals were captivated by Gaffur's storytelling, and they laughed and cheered as he brought the characters to life. As the night wore on, the animals began to grow tired, and they started to make their way back to their homes. Gaffur watched as his friends left, feeling grateful for the wonderful evening they had shared together. As he made his way back to his own home, Gaffur couldn't help but smile. He knew that he had brought joy to his friends, and he felt proud of the beautiful garden gala he had created. From that day on, Gaffur continued to spread laughter and happiness throughout the savannah, always looking for new ways to bring his friends together and make them smile.
The Moonlit Pond. Once upon a time, in a far-off land, there was a beautiful pond that shone like a diamond in the moonlight. The pond was surrounded by tall trees and lush greenery, and it was said that the pond was home to magical creatures. One night, a young girl named Lily was walking through the forest when she stumbled upon the pond. She was mesmerized by its beauty and decided to sit by the pond and enjoy the peacefulness of the night. As she sat there, she noticed a small frog hopping towards her. The frog had a friendly face and a twinkle in its eye. "Hello, little frog," said Lily. "What brings you here?" The frog replied, "I live in this pond, and I couldn't help but notice a new visitor. My name is Freddie, and I'm the guardian of this pond. Would you like to explore the pond with me?" Lily was thrilled at the invitation and eagerly followed Freddie into the pond. As they swam through the water, they encountered a family of turtles, a school of fish, and even a mermaid. The mermaid's name was Marina, and she was the most beautiful creature Lily had ever seen. Marina had long, flowing hair and a shimmering tail. She welcomed Lily and Freddie and showed them around her underwater kingdom. As they swam back to the surface, Lily realized that she had made new friends and had experienced something truly magical. She promised to visit the pond again and share her adventures with her family and friends. From that day on, Lily visited the pond every full moon, and she and her new friends would explore the wonders of the moonlit pond. And every time she left, she felt grateful for the magic that the pond had brought into her life.
The Jovial Jaguar's Jump Rope Joust. Once upon a time, in the heart of the jungle, there lived a jovial jaguar named Jax. Jax was known throughout the jungle for his love of fun and games. He was always up for a good time, and his infectious laughter could be heard echoing through the trees. One day, Jax was out for a stroll when he stumbled upon a group of animals playing jump rope. There was a monkey, a toucan, and a sloth all taking turns jumping over the rope. Jax was intrigued and asked if he could join in. The animals were hesitant at first, as jaguars were known for their fierce nature. But Jax assured them that he was a friendly jaguar and just wanted to have some fun. So, they welcomed him into their game. Jax was a natural at jump rope and quickly became the star of the show. He jumped higher and faster than anyone else, and his acrobatic moves left the other animals in awe. They had never seen a jaguar move like that before. As the game went on, Jax noticed that the other animals were starting to tire. They were getting slower and less coordinated, and the jump rope was starting to trip them up. Jax knew he had to do something to keep the game going. So, he suggested a jump rope joust. The animals would take turns jumping over the rope while Jax tried to knock them off balance with his tail. If they could stay on their feet, they would win a prize. The other animals were hesitant at first, but Jax's infectious enthusiasm won them over. They agreed to the challenge, and the jump rope joust began. Jax was a fierce competitor, but he was also fair. He didn't use his strength to knock the other animals down, but instead relied on his agility and quick reflexes. The other animals were impressed by his sportsmanship and cheered him on as he jumped and twisted through the air. In the end, everyone was a winner. The other animals had all managed to stay on their feet, and Jax had made some new friends. They all celebrated with a big feast of fruits and nuts, and Jax's laughter echoed through the jungle once again. From that day on, Jax was known as the jump rope joust champion of the jungle. He continued to spread joy and laughter wherever he went, and the other animals loved him all the more for it. And whenever they played jump rope, they always made sure to invite Jax to join in the fun.
The Clownfish Comedy Club and the Great Barrier Reef Talent Show. Once upon a time, in the depths of the Great Barrier Reef, there lived a group of clownfish who were always looking for ways to have fun. They were always playing games, telling jokes, and having a good time. One day, the clownfish decided to put on a talent show for the other creatures of the reef. They wanted to show off their skills and have a good time. The clownfish started to practice their acts, and soon the word spread throughout the reef. Everyone was excited to see what the clownfish had in store. On the day of the show, the clownfish had a great time performing their acts. There were singing clownfish, dancing clownfish, and even clownfish who could juggle. Everyone was laughing and having a great time. At the end of the show, the clownfish were declared the winners of the talent show. They were so proud of themselves, and the other creatures of the reef were so impressed with their performance. The clownfish had so much fun that they decided to start their own comedy club. They called it the Clownfish Comedy Club, and it quickly became the most popular spot in the reef. The clownfish would perform their acts every night, and the other creatures of the reef would come to watch and laugh. It was a great way for the clownfish to show off their talents and have a good time. The Clownfish Comedy Club and the Great Barrier Reef Talent Show was a huge success, and the clownfish were so proud of themselves. They had a great time, and everyone else did too.
The Hopping Hippo's Hilarious Hiccups. Once upon a time, in a lush green jungle, there lived a hippopotamus named Harry. Harry was a happy-go-lucky hippo who loved to hop around the jungle. He was known as the Hopping Hippo among his friends. One day, Harry woke up with a strange feeling in his tummy. He felt like he had to burp, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't. Suddenly, he let out a loud hiccup, and to his surprise, he started hopping uncontrollably. Harry's friends, the mischievous monkeys, were swinging from tree to tree when they saw Harry hopping around. They couldn't help but laugh at the sight of the hopping hippo's hilarious hiccups. Harry was embarrassed and didn't know what to do. He tried to stop hopping, but the hiccups wouldn't go away. He went to his friend, the wise old owl, for help. The owl listened to Harry's problem and said, "Harry, my dear friend, you need to scare yourself to stop the hiccups." Harry was confused and asked, "How can I scare myself?" The owl replied, "Close your eyes and imagine the scariest thing you can think of." Harry closed his eyes and imagined a giant crocodile chasing him. Suddenly, he let out a loud roar, and to his surprise, the hiccup stopped, and he stopped hopping. Harry was relieved and thanked the wise old owl for his help. He went back to his friends, and they were amazed to see that the hopping hippo's hilarious hiccups had stopped. From that day on, Harry knew what to do whenever he got the hiccups. He would close his eyes and imagine the scariest thing he could think of, and the hiccups would disappear. The mischievous monkeys still teased him about his hopping, but Harry didn't mind. He knew that his friends loved him, hiccups and all. And so, the hopping hippo continued to hop around the jungle, spreading joy and laughter wherever he went.
The Curious Case of the Talking Tree. Once upon a time, in a small village nestled in the hills, there lived a young boy named Jack. Jack was a curious boy who loved to explore the nearby woods and often found himself daydreaming about the magical creatures he was sure lived there. One day, while exploring the woods, Jack stumbled upon a strange sight. In the middle of a clearing was a tall, old tree with a face carved into its trunk. Jack was sure he heard the tree whisper his name. He couldn't believe his eyes. Jack cautiously approached the tree and asked, "Are you really talking to me?" The tree replied, "Yes, I am. I'm a talking tree, and I'm here to help you." Jack was amazed and asked the tree what it could do. The tree said it could answer any question Jack had. Jack was so excited he asked the tree all sorts of questions about the world and the creatures that lived in the woods. The tree answered all of Jack's questions and even told him stories about the magical creatures that lived in the woods. Jack was so fascinated by the talking tree that he visited it every day. One day, Jack asked the tree why it was so special. The tree replied, "I'm special because I'm the only talking tree in the world. I was created by a powerful wizard to help people like you." Jack was so excited to have found such a special tree. He thanked the tree for all its help and promised to visit it every day. From then on, Jack and the talking tree became the best of friends. Jack would visit the tree every day and the two would talk and laugh for hours. The talking tree became a legend in the village and people from all over would come to visit it and hear its stories. The Curious Case of the Talking Tree was a magical story that Jack and the villagers would never forget.
The Guardian Unicorns and the Cloud Castle. Once upon a time, in a beautiful, dreamlike world, there lived four magical unicorn friends. They called themselves the Guardian Unicorns because they made it their duty to watch over and protect their world for all of its inhabitants. Their names were Berry, Star, Halo, and Crackle, and each of them was full of life and love for their magical world. Along with their many friends that lived in this world, the Guardian Unicorns spent their days helping the animals in the forest, tending to the wishing pond and bringing laughter and joy to all of its creatures. One day, while they were doing their magical duties, they came across an astonishing sight, a towering castle in the sky. It was so high and so beautiful that the unicorns had never seen anything like it before. The guardian unicorns knew that their world was under magical protection, but this castle seemed to be even more powerful. Intrigued, the guardian unicorns decided they had to find out what was inside the castle. They set out on a mission to explore this unfamiliar terrain and figure out the secrets of this enchanting castle and its inhabitants. On their grand adventure, the 4 unicorn friends encountered obstacles along the way that tested their courage, bravery, and trust. With their magical powers, the guardian unicorns soon gained the trust of the residents of the Cloud Castle. But their newfound friends had a secret the unicorns could not have imagined. The castle itself was under an ancient curse. A powerful wizard had placed a curse upon it and the creatures that lived in it, calling them the Phantom People. The Phantom People had been under the curse for a very long time and hadn't seen a single moment of happiness or joy in centuries. The guardian unicorns were determined to break the curse, but that meant finding the powerful wizard who had set it in the first place. The 4 friends worked tirelessly to uncover the truth, but it seemed that the wizard was nowhere to be found. Just when they were about to give up, they met a kind old fairy named Charisma who had the answers they were looking for. She told the unicorn friends that the only way to break the curse was to find 4 magical keys, each hidden in a magical place in their land. The guardian unicorns were immediately off on a new mission, collecting the 4 magical keys and putting them together to break the curse. Along the way, they ran into plenty of trouble, and it seemed like the magical keys were never going to be found. However, the 4 unicorn friends refused to give up, and with the help of Charisma and their new mystical friends, they were able to find the 4 magical keys and place them together in the castle. Immediately the curse was broken and the Phantom People were filled with joy, happiness and laughter filled the air, as the castle disappeared from the sky and reappeared in the beautiful world below. The guardian unicorns were praised for their bravery and courage that day. They had saved the castle and all of its mystical residents. From then on, the 4 unicorn friends were known as the proud guardians of the Cloud Castle. The end.
The Hilarious Hedgehog's Hat Heist. Once upon a time, in a forest far, far away, there lived a hilarious hedgehog named Harry. Harry was known throughout the forest for his silly antics and his love for hats. He had a collection of hats that he wore every day, from a top hat to a baseball cap. One day, Harry woke up to find that his favorite hat, a bright red beanie, was missing. He searched high and low, but it was nowhere to be found. Harry was devastated. He loved that hat more than anything in the world. Determined to find his beloved beanie, Harry decided to investigate. He asked all of his forest friends if they had seen anything suspicious, but no one had. That is, until he spoke to a sneaky squirrel named Sammy. Sammy had seen something strange the night before. He had seen a group of mischievous mice sneaking around with something red in their paws. Harry knew he had to act fast if he wanted to catch the culprits. He gathered his friends, including a wise old owl named Oliver and a brave bunny named Benny, and they set out to find the mice. They searched high and low, through bushes and over rocks, until they finally found the mice's hideout. The mice were wearing Harry's beanie and laughing hysterically. Harry was furious, but he knew he had to be clever if he wanted to get his hat back. He challenged the mice to a game of hide and seek, and if he won, they had to give him back his hat. The mice agreed, thinking they could easily outsmart Harry. But they were wrong. Harry was a master at hide and seek, and he found all of the mice in record time. The mice were shocked and amazed, and they knew they had to keep their end of the bargain. Harry got his beanie back, and he was overjoyed. He thanked his friends for their help and promised to never let his hat out of his sight again. From that day on, Harry wore his beanie with pride, and he never forgot the adventure he had with his friends. And as for the mischievous mice, they learned their lesson and never stole anything again. The forest was a happier place because of Harry and his friends, and they all lived happily ever after.
The Extraordinary Eagle's Empowering Expedition. Once upon a time, in a far-off land, there lived an extraordinary eagle named Eddie. Eddie was no ordinary eagle, he had a special gift that made him stand out from the rest. He had the ability to see things that others couldn't see. He could see the beauty in the smallest of things, and he could see the potential in everyone he met. One day, Eddie decided to go on an empowering expedition. He wanted to explore the world and see all the amazing things it had to offer. He packed his bags and set off on his journey. As he flew over mountains and valleys, he met many different animals. Some were big, some were small, some were fast, and some were slow. But Eddie didn't judge them by their size or speed. He saw the beauty in each and every one of them. One day, Eddie met a little bird named Benny. Benny was different from the other birds. He had a broken wing and couldn't fly like the rest of them. But Eddie didn't see Benny's broken wing as a disability. He saw it as a unique gift that made Benny special. Eddie and Benny became fast friends, and Eddie invited Benny to join him on his empowering expedition. Together, they explored the world and saw all the amazing things it had to offer. They saw the beauty in the smallest of things, and they saw the potential in everyone they met. As they flew over mountains and valleys, they met many other animals with differences. Some had one eye, some had no legs, and some had no fur. But Eddie and Benny didn't judge them by their differences. They saw the beauty in each and every one of them. At the end of their journey, Eddie and Benny realized that their differences were what made them special. They didn't need to be like everyone else to be extraordinary. They were extraordinary just the way they were. And so, Eddie and Benny returned home, empowered and inspired by their journey. They knew that they could do anything they set their minds to, and that their differences were what made them truly extraordinary.
The Hammerhead Hero and the Coral Reef Rescue. Once upon a time, there lived a brave and adventurous hammerhead shark named Hero. Hero lived in the beautiful coral reef, and he was always looking for ways to help his friends and neighbors. One day, Hero noticed that the coral reef was in trouble. The water was becoming murky and the coral was starting to die. Hero knew he had to do something to save the reef, so he set off on a mission to find the cause of the problem. Hero swam and swam, searching for clues. He asked all the fish and sea creatures he met, but no one seemed to know what was wrong. Finally, Hero came across a giant octopus who told him that a group of humans had been dumping trash and chemicals into the ocean. Hero was determined to stop them, so he swam as fast as he could to the surface. When he got there, he saw a huge boat filled with people dumping garbage into the water. Hero was so angry that he started to swim around the boat, making loud noises and splashing the water. The people on the boat were so scared that they quickly stopped dumping and sailed away. Hero had saved the coral reef. Hero was celebrated by all the creatures of the sea. They threw him a big party and made him a hero cape out of seaweed. From then on, Hero was known as the Hammerhead Hero and the Coral Reef Rescue. The end.
The Great Escape from the Zoo. Once upon a time, in a big city, there was a zoo. The zoo was home to many animals, from lions to monkeys, and from giraffes to elephants. The animals were well taken care of, but they were also very bored. They longed to be free and explore the world outside the zoo. One day, a group of animals decided to make a plan to escape from the zoo. They knew it wouldn't be easy, but they were determined to try. The group included a clever monkey named Max, a brave lion named Leo, a curious giraffe named Gigi, and a mischievous elephant named Ellie. Max, being the smartest of the group, came up with a plan. He knew that the zookeepers always left the gate open for a few minutes every day to let in the food truck. So, the animals decided to make their escape during that time. The day of the Great Escape arrived, and the animals were ready. As soon as the gate opened, they ran out of the zoo and into the city. They were amazed by all the sights and sounds they had never seen before. They ran through the streets, dodging cars and people, and finally found themselves in a park. They were having so much fun exploring that they didn't even notice the zookeepers and police officers chasing after them. But then, they heard a loud noise. It was Ellie, who had accidentally knocked over a trash can. The noise alerted the zookeepers and police officers to their location, and they were quickly surrounded. The animals were scared, but Leo stepped forward and roared loudly. The zookeepers and police officers were so surprised that they backed away, giving the animals a chance to escape. The animals ran as fast as they could, back to the zoo. When they got there, they were exhausted but happy. They had finally experienced the freedom they had always dreamed of. From that day on, the animals were no longer bored. They knew that they could always escape if they wanted to, but they also knew that they had a home in the zoo, where they were loved and cared for. And they lived happily ever after.
The Frolicking Frog's Frisbee Frenzy. Once upon a time, in a lush green forest, there lived a group of animals who loved to play together. Among them was a little frog named Freddie, who was always up for some fun and adventure. One sunny day, Freddie and his friends were playing with a frisbee they had found in the forest. They tossed it back and forth, laughing and having a great time. But suddenly, the frisbee flew too far and landed in a nearby pond. Freddie, being the brave little frog that he was, volunteered to retrieve the frisbee from the pond. He hopped into the water and swam towards the frisbee, but just as he was about to grab it, a big fish swam by and snatched it away. Freddie was determined to get the frisbee back, so he chased after the fish. The fish swam deeper and deeper into the pond, and Freddie followed closely behind. Soon, they were both lost in the murky depths of the water. As Freddie swam, he met a friendly turtle named Tommy, who offered to help him find the frisbee. Together, they searched high and low, but the frisbee was nowhere to be found. Just when they were about to give up, they heard a loud noise coming from a nearby cave. Curious, they swam towards the cave and peeked inside. To their surprise, they saw the frisbee lying on a pile of shiny rocks, guarded by a fierce-looking eel. Freddie and Tommy knew they had to be brave if they wanted to get the frisbee back. They came up with a plan to distract the eel while Freddie snatched the frisbee. With Tommy's help, they executed their plan perfectly, and Freddie grabbed the frisbee just in time. Overjoyed, Freddie and Tommy swam back to the surface, where their friends were waiting for them. They all cheered as Freddie proudly showed off the frisbee he had retrieved from the pond. From that day on, the animals in the forest played with the frisbee every day, and Freddie became known as the bravest frog in the land. And whenever they played, they remembered the exciting adventure of the Frolicking Frog's Frisbee Frenzy.
The Hysterical Hyena's Hopscotch Hoedown. Once upon a time, in the heart of the African savannah, there lived a hyena named Harry. Harry was not like any other hyena in the savannah. He was always laughing and giggling, even when there was nothing to laugh about. His laughter was so contagious that all the animals in the savannah loved to be around him. One day, Harry was feeling particularly happy and decided to organize a hopscotch hoedown. He invited all his friends, including the lion, the elephant, the giraffe, and the zebra. Everyone was excited to attend the party, but they were a little confused about what a hopscotch hoedown was. Harry explained that it was a game where they would draw a hopscotch board on the ground and take turns hopping on it. The animals were a little hesitant at first, but Harry's infectious laughter convinced them to give it a try. The party started, and the animals drew a hopscotch board on the ground. Harry went first and hopped on 1 foot, then 2 feet, then 1 foot again. The other animals followed, and soon they were all hopping and laughing together. The party was going great until the board started to get a little crowded. The animals were bumping into each other and falling over, and Harry's laughter turned into hysterical giggles. The other animals couldn't help but laugh too, and soon they were all rolling on the ground, laughing uncontrollably. The hopscotch hoedown turned into a laughing frenzy, and the animals had the time of their lives. They all agreed that it was the best party they had ever been to, and they couldn't wait for the next one. From that day on, Harry's hopscotch hoedown became a regular event in the savannah. The animals would gather together, draw a hopscotch board on the ground, and hop and laugh until they couldn't hop or laugh anymore. And Harry, the hysterical hyena, was always at the center of the fun.
The Musical Bees and the Flower Orchestra. Once upon a time, deep in the forest there lived a colony of bees so unique they made music like no other. The bees were an odd-looking bunch. Some were red, some were yellow, and some were an array of other colors, stripes and spots and colorful patterns of all kinds. But what made these bees so special was the fact that they were musical. They made their own songs, and when they buzzed, it was in harmony with each other. The music was so beautiful it drew all the animals of the wood near to them, foxes and raccoons, owls and eagles, even the shy little hares stopped to listen. But the musical bees weren't satisfied with just their own songs, they wanted to play with more than just voices and tiny wings. So, they decided to put on a show. Using their little bee legs, they set about collecting petals from all the flowers in the forest. They collected lilies and roses, daisies and pansies, until they had enough to create a beautiful stage set. It was like a giant orchestra with its own vibrant lighting show. The musical bees that had created this masterpiece were full of pride and excitement, and they anxiously awaited the start of their performance. But they weren't alone in their anticipation. All the other animals of the forest were eager to get the show started. The musical bees took their places on the petal stage and the show began. As they buzzed, the petals lit up in clouds of color and sound. Cabaret music filled the wood, and the animals were mesmerized. Even the hares were up on their hind hoofs, tapping away in time with the music. The show went on and on until the sun began to set and the petals started to droop. The stage show must come to an end, but not before the king of the forest made a grand entrance. The badger came lumbering in and bowed to the musical bees. "I have never seen such a show," he said. The bees held out their wings in thanks and their audience cheered. The show was over, but the musical bees were still buzzing with energy. They had done something no one had ever seen before. From that day on, the musical bees were celebrated throughout the forest. Every now and then they still come out to give the animals a special show, and each time is as special as the last. The musical bees and the flower orchestra always stay in the hearts and minds of the animals of the forest as a reminder of true beauty and joy.
The Galactic Battle of the Starfighters. Once upon a time, in a galaxy far, far away, there was a group of brave and adventurous starfighters. They were the guardians of the galaxy, always ready to defend their home from any danger that might come their way. One day, a dark force threatened to destroy the galaxy. The evil space pirate, Captain Zorg, had built a powerful weapon that could destroy entire planets with just one shot. The starfighters knew they had to act fast to stop him. Led by their fearless captain, Ace, the starfighters set out on a mission to destroy Captain Zorg's weapon. They flew through space, dodging asteroids and battling enemy ships along the way. As they approached Captain Zorg's base, they were met with fierce resistance. But the starfighters were determined to save their galaxy, and they fought with all their might. In the end, it was a close battle, but the starfighters emerged victorious. They destroyed Captain Zorg's weapon and captured the evil pirate, bringing him to justice. The galaxy was saved, and the starfighters were hailed as heroes. They returned home to a hero's welcome, and everyone celebrated their bravery and courage. From that day on, the starfighters continued to protect their galaxy from any threat that might come their way. And they knew that as long as they stood together, they could overcome any challenge and emerge victorious. The end.
The Mysterious Island. Once upon a time, there was a group of adventurous children who loved to explore the world around them. One day, they stumbled upon a mysterious island that was hidden away from the rest of the world. The island was surrounded by a thick fog that made it impossible to see what was beyond it. The children were curious and decided to explore the island. As they walked through the dense forest, they came across strange creatures that they had never seen before. There were giant butterflies with wings as big as their bodies, and colorful birds that sang beautiful melodies. As they continued their journey, they stumbled upon a cave that led deep into the heart of the island. The children were hesitant to enter, but their curiosity got the best of them. They cautiously made their way through the dark and damp cave, until they reached a large chamber. In the center of the chamber, there was a glowing crystal that illuminated the entire room. The children were amazed by its beauty and wondered what it could be used for. Suddenly, they heard a voice that echoed through the chamber. "Welcome, young adventurers. You have discovered the secret of the island. The crystal you see before you has the power to grant wishes. But be warned, the wishes come with a price." The children were excited and eager to make a wish. They each took turns making their wishes, but soon realized that the price they had to pay was too high. They had to give up something they cherished in order to have their wish granted. The children learned a valuable lesson that day. They realized that sometimes the things we wish for come with a price, and it's important to think carefully before making a wish. They left the island with a newfound appreciation for the things they had and a sense of adventure that would stay with them forever.